First of all, Frank, thank you for your leadership and all the participating communities. Jack Ciattarelli, Hillsborough resident and Assemblyman for the 16th, which includes a great many of the towns that are represented on the commission. I was wondering if you can explain how it is that the benefit cost ratio, how is a modest community not disadvantaged by this calculation? And by modest community, do I mean a community that's comprised of homes that are very modestly priced? Because it almost seems to me there should be sensitivity analysis that speaks to the number of lives affected by the flood, rather than have the benefit cost analysis be a function of the value of those homes. Is not a community that's comprised of many, many modest homes disadvantaged because of the fact the homes are very modest in value, as opposed to the number of lives affected?
Well, we typically look at things, you could put a dollar value to.
Because you spoke to reconstruction costs.
Right, it's not market value
It's right, it's not market value, it's reconstruction costs. But reconstruction costs are a function of market value. The lesser expensive the home, the lesser the reconstruction costs. But it seems to me that that approach to the calculation disadvantages a community comprised of very modest homes. Are we actually saying that if there were 10,000 homes and 20,000 lives affected by the kind of floods we see in Manville, they still would not exceed the 1%? Because they're very, very modestly priced homes?
Well, there's one thing. If you have modestly priced homes, you tend to have more of them because they're dense, so you could have a greater damage pool. But if this was, say, an affluent area, say a more affluent area, you might have...
You're not going to say what I think you're going to say, are you?
You might, no, I'm not. You might have a lesser number of homes that might be worth more, so there's a trade-off.
What I'm suggesting is that if you use reconstruction costs in a very, very modest community, it matters not how many lives are affected by the kind of floods we see in Manville. And that, to me, is a real limitation of the benefit-cost ratio. Now, I don't know if you guys are the ones that came up with that ratio, or if that's just the regulations and the laws and you're bound by them. But I'm asking us all to do a sensitivity analysis here. What we're basically saying is that if 30,000 lives, if 20,000 homes were affected by the kind of floods we see in Manville, we still might be below the 0.1, because this is a very, very modest community, as opposed to 10,000 $1 million homes. In actuality, what we're kind of saying is that 5,000 $2 million homes has a better chance of getting aid based on that calculation than a community of 10,000 homes that are all priced at 100,000. Listen, I'm not here to pick a fight with you guys. This is a magnificent study you've done. It's very comprehensive, and you've been gentlemen and real competent in communicating. But it seems to me there's a real flaw in the calculation in that respect. There should be, in addition to the mathematical calculation, a sensitivity analysis that speaks to the number of lives affected, so that we don't end up disadvantaging a community that has, sorry to be so repetitive, very modestly priced homes.
Okay. Three things that I think of immediately is, number one, $200,000, $300,000 homes. Just from working around the area, Long Island, Westchester, that's kind of a typical price of what we're running into on homes near a river. So, it's not like this community is more modest than other communities that are getting similar. They seem to be running in about that range.
What if 30,000 lives were affected with each type of flood we see in Manville, and the ratio still was coming in less than 1?
Well, there's another thing that they are working about, because the BC ratio is not something, we came up with at the New York District. Right. Economic justice has been something that they're bouncing around a lot now, that they're trying to kind of capture that.
Who's they?
Washington level, certainly our environmental and cultural people are wrestling with that. So that's something they're trying to get a handle on. And then the other thing, I think what Alex was saying, and maybe you missed it, or maybe I missed what you, generally a more expensive home takes up more property. So you may have one home on an acre, just to give an example, and then in a modest community, you may have 20 homes on an acre.
If there was one home in Manville and it was priced at $250 million, they'd be over the 0.1.
And we're also talking
and
about
therefore we get the funding?
Repair costs. And the repair costs aren't quite as sensitive to the value of the house.
Yeah.
Well, if you
So
build
there are a couple of things that are, it's not as bad as I think you may be picturing it.
Well, if you build a ranch in Manville, it's not going to cost, and I disagree with you. If you drive through Hillsborough and Franklin, they now put mega mansions on the same size lot that's in Manville. But they're not worth $150,000. They're worth, I live in one section of Manville,
Frank,
my house.
I just want to make a point. I'm sorry to interrupt, because it seems to me there should be a sensitivity analysis that gets away from value and gets to lives affected, the number of lives affected. Because I got to tell you something. Because Manville is such a modest community, it almost seems to me, as the point that you all made, it matters not if you include every single structure in Manville, you'll still come out on the wrong side of that calculation. And to me, it should be, and that's where there should be a sensitivity analysis in addition to this exercise that speaks to lives affected. Numbers don't always tell the whole story.
I think that's something we should be bringing up to our federal legislators,
Yes,
the ones
well,
that
we
write these rules.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to reach out to our representatives and
Yeah.
make this very clear point that basically, and I thank Kevin for bringing it up, basically, you're right. Put the whole town of Manville in here, we're not going to make your code. We're not going to make the number. So there's nothing that will save these people from flooding.
Yet I know we all believe, based on the number of lives that are affected by each flood, we should qualify.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I like your idea as well as not increasing the scope of the project, but certainly increasing the size of the basin to increase that number to see if we can at least get closer.
Absolutely.
So that any other type of sensitivity analysis carries the day. I'm sorry I have to run. Thank you all. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome,
coming.
sir.
Appreciate
We'll be in
it.
touch.
Okay, thank you. I know we have